Okay, good morning or good afternoon or good evening for everyone. So I'm Marlon Pierce, and I'm going to introduce our tutorial today before handing it over to other presenters. So this is Securing Science Gateways with Custos Services. So this is a joint collaboration between Indiana University, where a lot of us are, with Johns Hopkins University and the Galaxy team, and University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign and the CI Logon Federated Authentication team. So today, you're going to mostly hear from Isuru and from Dannon and Enis here in just a few minutes. So let me get into presentation mode. So what is a science gateway? It is a term we use a lot in the United States, which may or may not have full usage elsewhere. So it's a thing that is familiar to everyone by one name or another. When we say science gateways, we usually mean web front ends and middleware that provide scientific user environments for scientists to access software and data, which may be on high performance or cloud computing resources. So there are other things that gateways can do and so forth, but this is a good working definition. So if you're familiar, for example, with the Galaxy Science Gateway environment, then that's a great example of what we need. I also want to emphasize, though, that gateways are not just there to provide software as a service or data as a service or whatever, but they also enable collaboration. They manage groups, permissions, and privileges associated with accessing online resources. So, motivated by this, we realized there were several science gateway frameworks, some of which we build at IU with our team that you saw earlier, some from Galaxy, Zero, another popular platform in the United States, and so forth. We wondered, could we build some cross-cutting software that delivered the security services that all gateways, whatever their platform might need? So that's the motivation of the Custos project, and we implement this as open source security middleware. So it's open source. We'll have resource links here I'll show in a second if you want to look at the code. You know, it's all governed by the Apache Software Foundation, and its governance policies. But we also operate it as a service. So the code that you see is exactly the same as the service that our group at IU operates for a lot of gateways that that we support at our team, and we're working to grow this to include Galaxy and other gateway providers. So all this work is funded by, and we acknowledge the U.S. National Science Foundation for its support. Custos features include all the bullets you see here. Basically, we wanted to help manage identities, manage groups and roles and other ways of those identities being associated with different authorizations. We wanted to help allow gateway providers themselves to manage their user bases, provide all the sharing and other types of permission, or implement all those sorts of things that allow one user or one group to share things, such as outputs from simulation results or access to different resources. And then the last thing is what sometimes gets called secrets, or you might prefer to call them resource credentials. And these are the things that allow the gateway, and as we're more and more attempting to add to the system, allow individual users to bring their own resources to a gateway, which involves things like secret keys or OAuth 2 access tokens and things like this. So we don't want to just think of Custos, though, as here's an a la carte collection of services, but rather we want to think of these as what are the end-to-end science gateway usage scenarios that we can obtain through interactions with the gateway community that integrate all these features into novel applications. So there are plenty of providers of, for example, federated authentication in enterprise world and so forth. We're not trying to compete head-to-head with private corporations, but rather we're looking at how do we integrate that with all the other particular requirements that come out of the science gateway world. So the one URL for the tutorial material is this, and I will put this into the Zoom chat if I can get there. Okay, so everything that we'll go through today can be accessed. The reading material and the exercise inputs and so forth can all be accessed there. So let's take a quick look at it. So I particularly want to draw your attention to the agenda link here, which will review what we're going to go through today. So the times here are US Eastern Standard Time. Apologies if that's not your time zone. And so I particularly want everyone to know that we've got not a lot of me talking, but we have lots of interactive demos and hands-on exercises that are going to illustrate all the Custos services. That'll be the focus of part one, and then part two, we're going to take a deeper dive into how to actually use the Custos API by looking at Python bindings that are going to be executed inside a Jupyter notebook. Okay. And let's go back to presentation. So I took this picture and adapted it a little bit from Isuru. He'll reintroduce this in a few minutes. But I want to emphasize here that Custos is a service. And so it is exposed through an API, and you can build multiple user interfaces. The hands-on demonstrations and exercises, you're going to be going back and forth between two different user interfaces. The first is the Custos portal itself, and that's for people who provide gateways to communities. So we have a particular use case that Isuru will reintroduce later, and that case is we're all going to be pretending to be university chief information officers. So you're the university CIO. You will interact a lot with the Custos admin portal. You'll use that to manage your what we call tenant. Your users, people at your university, your professors, the students, the teaching assistants, and so forth, will not interact with the admin portal. They'll interact with a client. So for the tutorial, we have a simple learning management system created. So this is a system for students to submit assignments and for teaching assistants and professors to grade them and do all these sorts of things. So this is not a real learning management system, but rather it's a simple demo that we put together to illustrate all the Custos services. So Canvas is a popular learning management system in the United States used by lots of universities. So we're not attempting to take on Canvas head-to-head, but rather we wanted to use this as an illustration for all the services that Custos provides, but also help you think about how these things work together in end-to-end scenarios. So we'll be flipping back and forth between a couple of different user interfaces, and we'll be acting in different roles. Some people will be acting in different roles from others. Okay. Wrapping it up here, the main tutorial takeaways are the following. You can use the Custos service in your gateway and in other applications. It has an API defined in both gRPC and REST, and you can integrate this with lots of different downstream applications. They don't just have to be conventional web applications. And we run the service for you. So if you'd like to try this out, contact us. So our contact information is in eScience, in the tutorial information on the Whova platform for eScience, but you can also reach out to us through this email address, which we'll put into the Zoom chat. The third bullet and fourth bullet are different scenarios. So if you are interested in contributing directly to the software itself, because you like open source and you like what we're doing, and you want to add to it, or if you notice things that you need that we don't do, such as integration with or support for security requirements for the European Union, for example, we don't have a lot of familiarity with those. It's all open source. It's all governed by the Apache Software Foundation contribution and governance rules, and we welcome those code contributions. So let me ask, before we move on into the next part of the tutorial, if there are any questions. Okay. If not, let's Enis and Dannon, do you want to take it away?
Yeah, we can do the next step. I'll add the screen. All right. So we'll just look at what has been done and how to integrate Galaxy with Custos. So Galaxy, if you're not familiar with it, it's a data analysis platform that's focused on these four principles, namely accessibility, reproducibility, transparency, and community. The image in the middle is a map of attendees, color-coded by the number of participants from around the world from a training event that took place earlier in the year. And it shows the wide reach that the Galaxy community has. So the point of Galaxy is really to sort of encourage that community to be able to do its data analysis. This is predominantly genomics data analysis, but increasingly other domains are being supported, and Galaxy platform is being used. So there's examples of machine learning and data science, natural language processing and climate science that are all being integrated and made available as a way to interact between tools, the infrastructure, and users through Galaxy. So this community has created a number of sort of sub-communities that exist that focus on specific topics. So the Galaxy Training Network is chiefly responsible for running these worldwide training events that I just mentioned. There's a Galaxy admins group, for example, that focuses on helping each other manage and set up Galaxy instances around the world. There's over 150 of such servers available. There's extensive amount of help and community support through the Galaxy Help Forum, and then there's an intergalactic workflow committee and intergalactic utility committee that help people develop workflows and tools respectively. So overall, this besides being the software that it is, Galaxy is really this worldwide community that brings together software developers, administrators, trainers, and users. Having said that, it's also a piece of software. It is most known for, there's an ecosystem around Galaxy that has created a number of utilities to support the core mission and the flagship product, which is Galaxy. And so this is how a user will interact with Galaxy. It's available at most notably usegalaxy.org or usegalaxy.eu or usegalaxy.org.au for different national servers. But as I said, over 150 such servers exist, and you can also install it locally. And once you pull up one of these servers, you're presented with this three-pane layout. On the left-hand side is the tool panel. This makes various domain-specific tools accessible in a web-based format. Once you select a tool, the tool form is shown in the middle. A tool form consists of the fields that are required as input to the tools and the parameters that a given tool supports, followed by some help text and examples of how to use the tool. And on the right-hand side, you have a history. A history is, as the name implies, a history of the analysis steps that you have performed that builds on itself, right? So you provide some input data to begin with, run a tool, it generates a new data set, and you run the next data set, or the next tool that generates the next data set, and so on. These tools can be chained into workflows. There's a number of visualization capabilities that are linked for specific data types. All of this data that is produced here, whether it's workflows, histories, they can be shared with individual users or a group of users, as well as published for broader consumption. And so this model, I guess, of being a community-driven open source project has really helped Galaxy reach the worldwide scale. At the moment, usegalaxy.org server is running on the order of 600,000 jobs a month. The usegalaxy.eu server is actually running more like 2 million jobs a month. Collectively, there's about 250,000 users that have used Galaxy in the past. That's a cumulative number. An active annual number is more like 50,000. About a year ago, we've exceeded the 10,000 publications on the reference using Galaxy. And the platform does IUC, the IUC group specifically has, along with, of course, hundreds of people that have contributed a handful of tools. The toolbox that's available for Galaxy now exceeds 8,000 tools, which is probably an order of magnitude more than most other web-based servers. And it builds on Bioconda. So all the contributions to Bioconda eventually make their way into Galaxy. And like I said, there's over 100 servers, over 150, I believe, at this point, that each provide some unique spin on Galaxy. Many of them have a common tool set, but many are also tailored to some of those subdomains that I mentioned. And so, circling back to Custos, what does it mean for Galaxy to be a Custos-enabled science gateway? The goal here was to make integration and all the benefits that Marlon mentioned more tightly integrated with Galaxy and easier to consume by users. So this means that we built a number of core framework integrations with Galaxy, between Galaxy and Custos, that allow Custos to be enabled on multiple public servers and also require minimal configuration if you want to run this configuration on your local Galaxy instance. So we'll take a look at what that actually means. We've done this in first with external authentication. The goal was to eliminate the need for local usernames and passwords, and instead start using third-party authentication and federated identity across Galaxy instances. So at the very beginning, this sort of improves its user accessibility because you don't have to remember a username and password that you've used across potentially many Galaxy servers. What inadvertently happens though is that users use the same username and password often across multiple Galaxy servers, and hence that lowers the system security of the Galaxy servers itself. So by using this federated authentic identity, multiple servers jointly have better security posture. And then from the sort of reporting capabilities, it provides enhanced ability to do user introspection, meaning users will oftentimes sign in with their institutional identity. And that helps because we are a federally funded project. And so it helps being able to report that X percentage of users come from academic environments or from this region of the world, and in justifying the federal funding. The second high-level topic that that we're still working on when we talk about integration between Galaxy and Custos is secrets management. So increasingly, there's a need to access remote resources that are protected. And this may be things like buckets in cloud providers that require certain credentials or access to like a Dropbox account, or things like access to protected data sets. Again, in the United States, this is commonly referred to as a DB gap. And sometimes there's also need for individual tools, such as database and tools that themselves are protected with username and passwords. And so in order for a user to access the database from within Galaxy, they need to provide their username and password credentials for the tool to be able to retrieve the necessary information from the database. And so these secrets need to be stored somewhere so Galaxy can read them. Traditionally, this has not been a capability available within Galaxy because those secrets would have to be stored in plain text in the Galaxy's database. And that was just not an acceptable level of system security for running these public servers. And so we are now working on the implementation to allow these secrets to be stored in Custos and retrieved via the OAuth of data flow and represented via tokens. That would allow these types of tools and use cases to be made available from within Galaxy. So in terms of timelines, hopefully the next Galaxy release, so the 2201, will hopefully have at least a preliminary implementation for these capabilities. And so today, we figured, given the implementation is available and all, we would show you how to use external authentication. So I'll run this portion of the demo, and then I'll hand it over to Dannon, who will show how to actually set this up in case you're interested in doing this on your local Galaxy instance. So here I have a Galaxy instance configured for use with Custos. So imagine this is any other Galaxy that has had this configured, land on a URL. Again, this is my local host one. And if I go to login, given that currently the only mechanism through which people can log in is the username and password one, we'll start with that flow. But you can see down here this option to use existing institutional login. And this is nicely integrated from into Galaxy itself. It doesn't take you to a third-party site or anything, but it's right here in the interface. So, but again, because assuming that this is an existing server that just enabled this feature, I would still have a username and password. And this is a fairly important step, that you first log in using this credentials and then associate the third-party institutional login with the existing account. So I'll log it here using the traditional method, and I can see I'm now logged in with this email address, and here I've just created a simple history that named it using my Gmail username and password to indicate that this is a login that I've had before, that I used this particular email address and a password. And so what I can do now is go to my account preferences and link the third-party external identities to this account. So if I go here and say sign in with Custos, I'll use my Johns Hopkins affiliation and log in here, go through the login flow. Well, I've actually done this quite recently in preparation, but it would have otherwise popped up the Johns Hopkins login account, which fortunately is not going to be shown here. Ask me to log in using those credentials, and then redirect me back to Galaxy. If I go back to that same page, I can now see that this external identity has been connected with my account. And what I can do from now on, if I log out, go back to the login page, is I can continue to use the username and password. But instead, what I can do is just log in using the external identity that I've linked to my account. So again, selecting sign in with, or selecting the given institution, sign in with Custos will take me back to Galaxy, and you can see the same username and password. I mean, the same data that we had before is available. So that's that example of sort of tight integration. Again, we have the nicely embedded form. We're not being redirected to another site. There's a large number of institutions here. All this is supported with CI logon, as mentioned here, which supports I think several thousand identity providers from all over the world. And with that, unless there's some questions, I will hand it over to Dannon, and Dannon can show you how to actually make this possible within your Galaxy instance, or how to further customize it.
Okay. So Enis set up the big picture for Galaxy, and I'm going to walk through how, as a local administrator, you can actually use the Custos authentication we've built into Galaxy, what it takes to set it up. If you don't run a Galaxy, you have your own platform you want to integrate, this can sort of show you how easy and seamless it can be for both administrators and users. Okay, so I wouldn't actually recommend following along with this in real time. It's mainly a sort of a motivating example. This is the first step of just sort of cloning a local Galaxy and running it for the first time. Does take a little bit of time. It installs a bunch of dependencies and builds a web client and all that kind of stuff. So I've sort of pre-baked that part here. I have some notes on the right. We're actually not going to use the slides for this portion of it. So basically, I've already done this. I've cloned Galaxy, and I've got that shown up here. So I'm going to show you it run. We'll take just a second, and we'll have a locally running Galaxy. There we go. So this is a straight out of the box Galaxy, no configuration at all. You'll see the login page just asks for the username and email address and password, like Enis was saying. So let's say you actually want to, I could sign in here and do my own authentication, but we want to use Custos, so I'll show you how to do that. Let's shut this Galaxy back down. The first thing we have to do is do a little bit of configuration here. Galaxy ships with a bunch of sample files that have sort of the default configuration in them. We're going to copy those over to editable files, and then we're going to make a couple of quick edits. So all I've done is copy the sample files. Let me open up code here so you can see. It's in Galaxy's configuration directory right here. So this is Galaxy's main configuration file. There's tons of options in here. It's sort of the exhaustive list of all the controls you have. But we're going to set up specifically the OIDC stuff here. So I'm going to enable OIDC, and I'm going to tell it where to find the configuration files. So the default values there are fine. I'm going to save that. Then down here, we need to set up the backend, right? So this OIDC backends config.xml, that's where Galaxy saves all the information about your authentication providers. So you'll see that there's a bunch of sample stuff here. I'm going to delete everything but Custos, since that's what we want to show off here. And you'll notice that there are a bunch of optional parameters, but the main provider URL, and so the redirect are already configured. We just have to drop in a client ID and a client secret, which I've got here. Oops.
And in the remainder of the tutorial, you'll see how to actually get these credentials from Custos for your own installation.
Yeah. All right, so let me run Galaxy again. Just a second to start back up. It's not started yet, so give it a second, and then I'll refresh this page. All right, so now we've got the extra options. Also work at Hopkins. Oh, so note here, there's tons of all these providers, right? We're going to look at that in a minute, but I'm going to use my Hopkins credentials to log in. Let's see. It may also just redirect me straight through like it did Enis. That's, or it might not actually. Interesting. Is Hopkins authentication down? Enis?
Let me try again. Yeah.
See if it works for you. So, well, what I'll do real quick is let's just use my GitHub creds instead, because I know GitHub is up. That's funny. Okay, cool. I can sign in with, oh my gosh. All right. It's my two-factor auth. It's good timing on Hopkins auth being down. Sorry about this for a second. 6, 3, 2. I guess that's safe for everyone to see. So it passed me through back to Galaxy. This is just some, new user boilerplate. Yes, I want to create a new account, and I'm in as me, dannonbaker@gmail.com, using my external identity. So the next thing I was going to show is, let's say, it's actually somewhat ironic given what just happened, but let's say I wanted to constrain login to just Hopkins. I could do that by editing this configuration file and just saying, only allow logins from this IDP. So let's imagine you have a server that you really only want to run for your local university, and you want to offload management of identity, like securing it to only people from your university to Custos. So I'm going to say only people from Hopkins can log in. I'm going to restart Galaxy real quick. What is this? Oh, you know what? I never logged out, so I don't know what's going to happen there. Yeah, so I'm technically still logged in, but let me log out. Now, when I go to log back in, it will only allow logins from Hopkins, which, as we know, probably won't work because Hopkins is having issues, right? Nope, it did work. Okay, well, that's interesting. So, yeah. That didn't actually use Hopkins. It had the key stored from my, when I sort of swapped out from GitHub. Anyway, so that's how you can constrain to one particular provider if you want. Let me go back here. Yeah, so that's filtering allowed institutions. Yeah. Anything else, Enis?
No, I think that's it. So it shows off the Galaxy is something that's a popular gateway. After having done this integration between Custos, that it's easier on user, easier on administrators, but ultimately it also shows that other science gateways can do the same level of integration between Custos and themselves, and provide similar experience and benefits for users. And if there are any questions, we're happy to try and answer those. Otherwise, I'll pass it on to Isuru for the next phase of the tutorial.
Hi, also feel free to keep your questions posted on the Google Doc link I posted on the chat. Also, please sign in your attendance in it.
What's access to those documents? Like I get request access.
Oops, sorry.
Thanks, Enin and Dakan, for the great presentation of how Custos is how Galaxy is configured to use Custos services. So before moving to the Custos tutorial, like I would like to introduce that the Galaxy and HathiTrust Research Centers are the primary users of the Custos services, and then the Keycloak, Kashikov Vault are some identity solutions that we are using within the Custos, and then CI Logon is our federated identity management service that we use. So the Custos is primarily developed for the Science gateways as a security middleware service, but Custos generalize all the security concepts, and any external application can share these security features and integrate those security features for their applications. And as Marlon mentioned, the Custos services are deployed on IU secure network. And I would like to take this opportunity to thank the National Science Foundation for funding this project. So these are the primary features of Custos: local and federated authentication, role-based, group-based, and attribute-based authorization, user management, sharing management, secret management, tenant management. So in addition to these features, we are currently developing on service account concepts and real-time real-time API subscriptions kind of features. So if you go to our GitHub repo, you can see what kind of features are currently going on, and if you are interested, you can contribute to our code base. So before moving to the application, before moving to the hands-on portion, like I would like to introduce some simple use case that is a common use case in a classroom scenario. So I would like to introduce this sample canvas, which is a pseudo a learning management system. And you might have experience with learning management systems. So hopefully you will understand what this use case is. So in this case, we consider 3 end users: professor, student, and teaching assistants. So the professor can create assignments and share the assignments to set of students. And when sharing the assignments, the assignment is shared between teaching assistants and the students. So students can submit their own solutions to the given problem, and then those submissions are shared with the teaching assistants for the grading. So TAs will go through all the submissions done by the students, and then do the grading, and then share that grading to the professor. So professor will look over all the gradings and then do or modify the gradings given by teaching assistant, so he can make his own grading and then do the final grade release. So in this kind of, so this is the use case that we are trying to illustrate using the Custos capabilities. In order to illustrate these capabilities, we have come up with a sample canvas, which is, as I mentioned, it is a very lightweight learning management system. Okay. So in order to get some understanding about how we deploy and how these sample canvases interact with the Custos services, we can go through this picture. So as you can see, the end users of this canvas portal are connecting only to the canvas portal, and the canvas portal is communicating with Custos services to REST endpoints. So these Custos services are written in very generic gRPC based services. So using these gRPC stubs, you can generate any clients in any programming language. So it is language independent service. So currently we have Java clients and Python clients and REST endpoints. So if you are interested in like C++, you can generate your own 3 stubs to communicate with the Custos services. So in this case, like you can see that the canvas portal, the sample portal need to be integrated with Custos services. In order to do that, you need to have some kind of application configured with these Custos services. So the Custos services are exposed through a front-end application called Custos portal. And this front-end application is used to request a kind of application and do your configurations relevant to your application, so that it can be integrated with your application. In order to do that, someone need to log into this Custos portal and request a tenant. So we call it this workspace as a tenant, and the Custos supports multiple tenants. So it is a multi-tenanted service, but we keep this data and everything in a very isolated manner. So we are providing this unique workspace for each tenant. So this tenant admin will be your, let's say you have your chief information officer or chief information kind of role, that who will manage the development and all, and who has the highest privileges to control the behavior of the canvas portal. So I call it as a tenant admin, and then this tenant admin needs to log into this Custos portal and request a tenant, and the Custos admin will get notified for this tenant request, and then he will go through all the tenant configurations and then activate the tenant. So once the tenant is activated, this activated tenant can be used to integrate with this canvas portal, and those credentials will be used to access Custos service APIs. Okay, so in this hands-on agenda, I would like to walk you through this use case and explain underlying Custos features, how these features are used to model this and implement this use case, and then I will walk you through tenant configurations and tenant configure and how to request a tenant and how to configure that tenant to this kind of use case. So you might have a different use case, but the same concepts may apply for your use case, so you can try out the Custos portal. Okay. Okay, so I will this is there is a wiki page that describes all the steps that I'm going to present right now. So you can, if you are missing any information, you can go through this documentation, and then you can follow up if you have any trouble. And then, okay, so if you go to this HTTPS test drive, I will copy this HTTPS test drive. Okay, so this is our sample canvas. So now, as I told, like there are three users: professor, student, and the teaching assistant. So you can log into so all these. So I am using 3 different accounts to log into this sample canvas, and I will assign different role to those users. So this is the landing page of this sample canvas, and then I am using the federated authentication to log into that. That means like I am using my institution login. So let me click on this, and then you can select your institution from here. Let me select, yeah, I can even use the Google, and if you like, you can use the Google. So I am using this ISD at iu.edu account, and it will redirect me to this Indiana University login, and there I will type my username and password. Okay, so I have the duo authentication enabled, and it will push me. So once I accept that request, it will redirect it to the sample canvas homepage. So now what happens is I already authenticated, but still I don't have any authorization, because I don't have any privileges given at the moment, but the authentication works successfully, and I was able to log into this sample canvas. Okay, so let's go back to our presentation, and then I will explain how it is working like. So let's assume that we have this Custos service and this browser, and we have this federation service, CI logon, and the institutional identity provider. So from the, as soon as I click the login with institution login button, it will call the Custos authorization endpoint, and then it is redirects to the CI logon page. So from the CI logon, we can select the institution, and the institution we can authenticate by providing the credentials, and after successful authentication, the user provisioning will happen through CI logon to the Custos databases. So in this case, so this is a auth flow redirection actually, and we are following auth code grant type for this, but currently we are supporting different grant types, but for this federated authentication, we are using the authorization standard authorization code grant type and the OpenID based communications at the Custos through CI logon and IDP. So the advantage of using this CI logon services is that it unifies all the heterogeneous protocols that coming from IDP to CI logon and provide us the OpenID interface that we can configure with the Custos. Okay, so let's now okay, so now I will try to log in with 3 different accounts. So I already log in through my IU account, and then I will log in through my Gmail. Let's go here. Okay. Now you can see that the Gmail, I have logged in through the Gmail, but still I cannot, I don't have any features available for this user as well. So since I need another user account, I will log in through my another account. Okay, so now I have logged through 3 different user accounts, and I will now what I'm trying to do is I will log into the Custos portal, and I will configure these 3 users for different to different roles. So they will have, so as soon as I enable these roles for these users, they should be able to see what functionalities are available under those roles. So okay, so now I'm trying, so this is the Custos portal, so I will refresh it. So in the Custos portal, basically the tenant admin needs to log into this Custos portal and request a tenant. So I will walk you through those steps later, and currently I will log through this account. And when you go to the admin tenant section, there will be a lot of there will be the tenants that you requested. So this is the tenant that we are using for this session. So if you click on that tenant, you can see there are the profile information, roles, the profile information, roles are configured. So you can see that the teaching assistant, professor, and student roles are there. In addition to that, there are some other offline access, UMA authorization kind of roles which are required. Those are basically auth scopes that are required for different authentication purposes. And this admin role is already is given for the admin users of the tenant. So if you go to the users section of this tenant, I can see that all the users that who already log in to this tenant, but the admin role is given for only for this user. He is the tenant admin or the CIO role. And then I will try to assign the professor role for this for my account, which is ending at iu.edu. So in order to do that, you need to go to the user section and select the user. When you select it, it lists all the roles available. And if you click the professor role, it will save that. And then if I go back to the users, and I will assign the student role to this account, my um.lk account, and then I will save it. And then I will go back to my Gmail and then the TA account. Okay, I assign the teaching assistant role to this account. Okay, so if I go back to the sample canvas and if I refresh my IU account, it should show the professor view. So now you can see that the professor view is enabled for this account and we can create a new assignment. So, okay, so let me refresh the other accounts as well. So now you can see the Gmail, the teaching assistant view is enabled. And then for this account, it should enable the student view. Okay. So, okay, so at this point, what we need to understand is like, so the Custos services are used to provide the role-based authorization for this application. So based on the roles assigned for each users, these functions are enabled and disabled based on that. So that means if you need any kind of role-based authorization and and then you don't need to do any coding yourself, what you need to do is you need to log into the Custos portal and request a tenant, and then you can define what roles in your application, like here. So these roles are not hard coded. You can create any role right here, and then these roles are available to the users, and you can dynamically configure each users to have these roles, and then based on these roles, you can fetch these roles from the Custos APIs, and then you can develop your front end, your application based on that. Okay, so okay, so now the what I'm trying to do here is now I'm trying to create assignment and assign this assignment to different user groups. So let's assume, so the currently we are assuming that there is only one professor. So there is no professor group at this point, but we can have what we assume that there are students and TAs, multiple TAs. So they are assigned to a different group, and then when the professor create this assignment, let's say I will go and create some sample assignment. Let's say we are creating assignment like implement let's say any kind of shallow neural network, and then we can give any. So just to mention that our goal is not to provide a nice fancy UI for this use case, but just to illustrate how we can interact, how we can come up with this kind of use case with Custos services quickly. And we can select a due date, and then when you click on the create button, it creates an assignment. So this assignment is an entity or a digital object that created inside the Custos databases, and that this object is already shared with these groups, student group and TA groups. But you can see that these student groups have the viewer permission and TA group has the editor permission. So any users in the student group should have only the view access, but they cannot do any sharing or something kind like. But TAs should be able to share or should have this edit access enabled for this assignment. Okay. So now if I go back to my TA view and if I refresh, still you can see that assignments are not listed for this user, although he has the TA role. That is because this user is still not a member of teaching assistant group. So in order to view that assignment, this user needs to be a member of the teaching assistant group. And here, if I refresh, you can see still the students also does not have any access to these assignments. Okay, let me go back to the Custos portal as a tenant admin and then go to the groups. You can see there are two groups already created, student group and teaching assistant group. So I will add members to this student group. You can search through your username and then select the users and then click add. It will add all the users to this student group, and it shows the membership as a member of this group. There are some kind of group memberships as well. It is not relevant to this context, but you have that group membership controlling as well. And then the TAs group, I will add my Gmail account to this group, and once you click add, it will the users now added to these groups. And if you go to the entities section, you can see that as there is an entity called assignment, and this assignment is already shared with these groups. So you can see those relationships through this portal as well. And if you go to the entity types, you can see there are assignment, grading, and submission entity types as well. So these necessarily not need to be assignment, secret, and submissions. It can be your own it can be so these entity types are specific to your use case, and you can come up with your own entity types, and then from your applications, these entities will be generated like this, and you can integrate the sharing rules, very dynamic sharing rules for your application. And if it is one time sharing rule or something like that, you can do it in this portal. It depends on your use case. So anyway, let me go back to this application and refresh the page. Okay, so now when I'm refreshed, the assignment is available to the TAs, but here you can see that the sharing button is enabled, delete button is enabled. For this case, that is because we shared this assignment under the editor permission for this TA group. But if we go back to our student view, there are no such kind of functionalities enabled at the moment. That is because these students only have the read access. Okay, so now let's submit a new submission kind of thing, and I will give let's do some submission, and then we can view the submission at this point. And then so this as you seen in the Custos portal, this assignment submission are different entities. So the submission is created by this student So the submission entity is owned by this student. So he has the sharing permission for this submission entity separately, but it again depends on your use case, how you need to model your authorization use case, authorization for your use case. So now it is shared with this TA group with the viewer permission and the professor with the viewer permission. Okay. So now if I refresh the TA's view, the TA should be able to view the submissions and create the grading. So he can view the submission, but he cannot change the submission because this TAs only have the read permission at the moment. So now the create grading, let's say I'm giving a B+, and we can add some nodes. And we can save grading, and then this grading is created, and then it is already shared with, I guess, with the TA group and with the professor. It is still not shared with the student, so student still can't see what is the gradings that created by the TAs, given by the TAs. Okay, so if you go here, they can't see the grades given by the teaching assistants. So let's go to the professor's view now, and then if we refresh this page, we can see that the grades are listed here, and the professors has this release grade button to release the grade, or he can create his own grading, like let's say A, and then save, and then he can release this grade. So as soon as he release the grade, the students should be able to view the grade. Okay. So so you have seen that different entity types and different entities are created through this front-end application, and all these digital objects and these sharing rules should be recorded in the Custos portal as well. So if we go here and for the Custos portal, you can see that in the entities section, please refresh this, there are a lot of submissions created, entities created. So, and these as you can see, these permission types, editor, viewer, are also configured here, and the entity types are also configured here. So based on that, these entities are created in the Custos backend. So likewise, you can come up with your own use case. In order to, so I would like to present that how we have modeled this. So you can come up with your own model for your use case and integrate with Custos. So basically what we have done is we identified initially the user roles for the authentication purpose, authorization purposes, role-based authorization purposes. But since we need more deep fine-grained authorization, we come up with this group-based authorization. In this case, what happens is we created two groups, and we assign these students and TAs to these groups, and then we share this assignment with the student group and the TA group. So the student group, we shared this assignment under viewer permission, and then for the TAs under editor permission. So these users of these groups are automatically inherited with relevant permissions for this assignment object. So you can have different modeling, but that's how the group-based authorization works. So I will walk you through through more fine-grained, even more fine-grained authorization, where we have the child groups and how we can use these hierarchical groups to use for the authorization at the end of this hands-on, end of this tutorial. Okay, so as a summary, like what I need to discuss, want to discuss here is like we have seen how federated authentication works and how role-based authorization can be configured for very high-level authorizations like function enabling, disabling, or API authorizations, and even more fine-grained authorization like digital object sharings and kind of things. We can use group-based authorization. Okay, so now let's move into this Custos portal, back to the Custos portal, and I will log out from this portal, and I will now walk you through how you can request a tenant and what kind of attributes that you need to provide to create a tenant through the Custos, and how to configure that tenant to this kind of use case. So let's so at this time I am using my institution login. Let's go through the Indiana University. Okay, so I already logged through that email from a different account, from a different federation service. So I need to merge this in order to look through that. So I will use my Google and Gmail to look through it. Okay. Okay, so now you can try out this URL, and then so here I already have some tenants created, but you might not have any tenants listed here. So in order to begin the tenant creation process, click on this create new tenant. So the create new tenant contains two steps, involve two steps, step 1 and step 2. Step 1 is basically where you give the tenant admin information. So based on the authentication response, it automatically picks the username, first name, last name, and email for the tenant. If you like, you can change your first name and last name for this tenant admin, but I will keep it as it is, and I will give some password. So we are using this tenant for the SDK part as well. So in that case, like, remember the username and password that you are giving for this tenant. So we need that to do the SDK tutorial. Okay. So I am giving some password here. And then so this tenant admin will be your, as I mentioned, like it is your CIO role or the main developer or someone who is responsible for your application, that then he might have super privileges. And step 2 will be the tenant information. So what kind of tenant name that you need to give. So since it is kind of sample so this tenant name can be any name that you would like. So based on the context, so I am giving this as a sample canvas, and the redirect URI is very important, because this redirect URI is used to provide the authorization authentication responses to your application in the authorization code grant type that you already seen what kind of interaction is there with the browser. So these redirections are coming through this redirect URI. So if let's say that you are developing this locally, so you might have this kind of localhost port 8080/callback kind of redirect URI. But when you move to the development or staging or production environment, this redirect URI will be different. But in that case, you don't need to create a new tenant. You can just or you just come to this tenant profile, and you can add URIs on the fly, and then those will be applied. So okay, so the domain will be localhost in this case, and then the client URI is your landing page of your application, and if there are any logo that you need to give as a metadata of this tenant profile, you can give that as well, and you can provide any a comment, and the application type will be web by default, because that is the default option that we are supporting. But we can use the mobile kind of applications, but the idea here is that the authentication flows are differ based on the application type. And if I click the create tenant, it will show that the tenant has been requested, but it is in the requested state, and the Custos admin needs to log back to this portal and activate this tenant. So I will log out from this tenant, and I will log through my Custos admin account. And then if I go to the admin tenants, I can see that the new tenant is requested right now. So I will go here and activate the tenant. So it might take some few minutes to activate the tenants, because it is doing some kind of orchestration between external and internal services. And then if we can, once the tenant is activated, this client ID and secret is populated. So you need this client ID and secret in order to do some do authentication with the Custos APIs. Okay. And then I will log out from this account again, and I will again log in through my Google Gmail. And now you can see that the tenant I requested is in the active status. And now we can, if you click on the tenant, you can see the tenant profile and the client ID and secrets, redirect URIs. Like let's say you need to add another redirect URI, you can just click on that redirect URI, and you can add any URI. Let's say div dot some kind of this URI, and we can save this. So it is saved. And if you go back to the Custos portal, you can see still the tenant is active and you can add redirect URIs as needed. So now let's say we need to come up, we need to first initially configure this tenant request, not the professor, student, and teaching assistant roles for this tenant. So I am going here and I will add this tenant teaching assistant role and for this tenant. So this role is the, so now what I'm trying to do is, now we already requested the tenant and we activated the tenant. Now what we are doing is like configuring the tenants for this use case. So the initial step is to configure the roles, because we are using, we were initially use the role-based authorization. Okay. So likewise, we can create different roles, student, and we can create the professor. Okay. And then we can see those roles here, like professor, student, and teaching assistant roles are configured. Now, if you go back to your tenant, but you only see the one user right now, because your tenant does not have any users, logged in users. You need to integrate this tenant to allow users to log into this tenant. Or you may need to use Custos API to register users for these tenants. Until then, there will be only one user, that is your own user account. But what I wanted to show here is, we can see that this for this fresh tenant, the roles that we have configured are listed here under the roles section. You can see the teaching assistant, student, and professor roles are listed here. And so now you can assign the different roles to this user, as I did previously. So next step is, if we are going with the group-based authorization, add the student group. And then I will create the group, student group, and then I will create the teaching assistant group. Okay, so now we have two groups created, and these group IDs are somewhat generated from the Custos Services. And then if you need to add the members, you can go inside these groups and add members. So unfortunately, we don't have any users right now for this tenant, but when users are getting loaded to this tenant, we can allocate them to these different groups. Okay, so right now we have groups created, but we need to come up with some kind of entity types and permission types for sharings. Let's say we have by default we have owner permission type for every tenant created through the Custos portal, but we may need like read viewer permission, and let's say we need to have the editor permission type. So okay, so let's now we need to create the entity types. in this case, we need to create assignment entity type. And then we need to have grading. And then we need to have submission. So you can give more meaningful description here, but I'm just giving some short text for this. Okay, so now we have these roles, permission types, entity types are created, and groups are created. And then we can register any entities for this created entity types and do the sharings. But currently these entity generally what happens is these entities are created from the application, not from this portal, because this is where the actual data is generated. But these entity sections is shown here is just for watch and debug some issues if you need. But these entities are created through your application at the runtime. So, but just for the illustration purposes, let's say I am creating some sample assignment here, and I can select this assignment entity type and I can create that. So it is created, this entity, and we can share this entity with, let's say if I want to share this entity with the teaching assistant group, I can do it, and I can select the editor permission and I can save that. So likewise, we can define different likewise, we can do the sharing, very fine-grained sharing through the Custos portal. So this is the first half of the Custos tutorial. Like if we go back to our agenda, I will, if you have any questions, so like we can discuss it right now. If not, like I can briefly go through some features that I will show you the Custos GitHub repo, and so this is the Custos GitHub repo. And if you need, if you really like to try out these services, you can you can start cloning this GitHub repo, and you can look over these client SDKs and try out some configurations, try out some services of the Custos. And the Custos will provide some the latest features, such as subscribing to these Custos APIs, and auditing and security logs, and the email tenant-based email configurations, where each tenant can define what the event types, and then based on these event types, the Custos will generate custom emails for these users. So if you are interested in those features, you can contact the email address that the Marlon gave. So you can contact us. Yeah, so I would like to wind up the first portion of this presentation, and then we can start with the hands-on portion of the SDK tutorial portion in the next half.
Yeah, thanks, Isuru. I think let's take a break for 30 minutes.
Yeah.
So that'll be 12:30 US Eastern.
Okay, so I guess everyone is back, so we can resume the session. So in this session, what we are trying to do is going through the Python SDK tutorial, and then to see how we can and then how we can come up with authorization use case using the Python SDK. Okay, so I will share the link to the SDK tutorial. Let me share my screen. Okay. So I think I hope you can see my screen, and then in this in this use case, what we are trying to do is we first create some entity experiment. We call it as experiment since we are in this case we are focusing on the gateway use case, where we basically submit the experiments to gateway to the high performance clusters. So in this case, we create an experiment and we try to share that experiment with read permissions to the read-only admin group, and then we explicitly share this experiment with read permission to a specific user. So we have three groups called read-only admin group, and gateway users group. So this read-only admin group will read-only admin group has a child group called admin group. So anything that is shared with this read-only admin group, all the permissions are inherited to the admin group. So all the users of this admin group should have access to this experiment, and this external user that we share this experiment directly should have access, but other users of the gateway group should not have access. So based on this diagram, I would say that all these 4 users, the members of read-only admin group and admin group, should have access to this entity, and then this other external user of the gateway users group should have access, but others should not. So this is the some kind of use case that we are trying to implement using the Python SDK. So as the first step, you need to open this notebook in Jupyter Notebook or Colab. Like, I would recommend you to use the Colab. So the let me open this in my Colab. Okay. So this is already shared with. So if you click on this link, this will open up in your Google Drive. But if you don't have this Google Collaboratory installed in your Google Drive, you can go to this URL Colab Research google.com. And then this I will copy paste it into the chat. So you need to install. It is pretty easy, and it will take few seconds to install it into your Google Drive. Once you install that Google Collaboratory, you can open this notebook. If you click on this notebook, it will open up for you. And then what as the next step, don't run any code within this notebook. I would recommend you to create a copy in a drive. You just go to the file and save a copy in drive, and then it will spin up a new notebook, and you can rename it as what you want, what you need to call. So I would save it as like this. Okay, so now if you click on this table of content, you can see all the contents, all the headings that are marked up in the notebook. So these are the steps that we are going to follow sequentially. So before moving to our tutorial, initial as the first step, we need to install this Python SDK. So this Python SDK is hosted in the PyPy package as in the PyPy as a Python package, and we first need to install this Python package. So if you click on this pip install button, it will download, it will connect to the servers, and it will download all the relevant information. And if you already have these relevant dependencies, it will omit, it will say the requirement already satisfied, and it should show you this kind of I will expand this. So it will show you this kind of log. So once you run it, and then you need to go to the runtime and then restart the runtime to apply these changes. So when you restart runtime, it will the initialization. After restarting, it should display this green tick in the right hand side top corner, and then we can run rest of the code. Okay, so now we need to set up the Custos clients. So basically, we are using a user management client, group management client, resource secret management client, sharing management client, and identity management client. So these clients basically are to connect different Custos services. So this user management client is used to connect the user management service. Group management client is used for the group operations, and the resource secret is for the secret management, like generating SSH keys or storing any secret in the Custos kind of thing. And for the sharing, we are using the sharing management client, and user authentication purposes like obtaining access tokens kind of thing, we are using the identity management client. So we need to run this following code. Before running, I will explain a bit here. So in this case, we are importing. So this, so as soon as you install the Python SDK, it will this Python library will be installed to your runtime, and then this Custos clients library namespace will contain these clients, and you need to import these classes in your code. And then this server settings, we need to create some server settings. So this client, these settings are used to connect to the Custos service and to you and the select proper tenant. So in this case, this Custos host and port are given, but you need to use the tenant ID and secret. So this tenant ID and secret, basically the one we created in the previous session, previous hands-on. So I will go back to this and I will log in through my Gmail again, and then I will grab client ID and secret that are generated for this tenant that I created in the previous session. So I will copy the client ID, and then I will paste this tenant ID here, and I need to get the secret. So I will copy the secret and I will get the secret, and I will paste it here. So now you can see that the client ID and secret is given. So it creates a client settings object, and then we need to pass these client settings objects to these clients specific objects, class objects, to access these Custos services. And again, we need to give the admin username and password of the tenant. So that's why I told you to make a note on that. So remember that password. And so I will give my username here and the password. And then I will run this code, and I'm okay. So once you run it, it should say that successfully configured all Custos clients. And then we can, in the next section, what we are trying to do is we are trying to log in through this user account and get the authentication response and print the access tokens. In order to do that, I will first define the verify user method, and then I will run the verify user method. So in that case, if it is successful authentication, it will print the login response. In the login response, you can see that the ID token, access token, refresh token, and their expiration times. And again, it is updating the user profile using this access token. So it verifies that the Custos services are successfully accessible, and then this user is successfully log into the Custos tenant and and get this access token. Okay, so if we go back to our use case that you have seen, that these users, we need to register these 6 users. And then for that, I will define this register users method. In the register users method, we need to provide the user information like username, first name, last name, password, email, and then enable the user in the gateway, in the tenant. Okay, so in this case, these are the user metadata. There are 6 users, and then we register these users. Okay, so it will it registering users. Okay, so it successfully registers those 6 users. Now if we go back to our tenant, you can see that there are 6 users registered for this tenant. So now you can see that the users registered through the Python SDK are now synced with this tenant, and you can view those from this portal. Okay, so next what we are trying to do is we are trying to create 3 groups: admin group, read-only admin group, and gateway users group. For that, we are using this group management client, and then this create group API. And it provides a response, and then we convert it into a JSON, and we print the response. Okay, so I define the method, and these are the metadata like admin, read-only admin, and gateway user groups, and own ID as the admin user. And then we can see that these groups are created. If we go back to our tenant, you can see that these groups are already created in the tenant. Okay, so let's move on. Okay, so as the next step, we need to allocate users to the groups. So currently you can see if you go inside this read-only admin group, there is only the owner user. There are no any other users, but what I'm trying to do here is to allocate this set of users to these groups. So user Enis to the admin, Audrey to the admin, and Sophia to the read-only admin. Likewise, I'm trying to define this first, this allocate users to groups method, and then run this user group mapping. And then it will successfully register these users to these groups. And if you go back here, again, you can see that these two users are added to this read-only admin group, and gateway users, you can see another two users are added. So likewise, we can do these group operations. Okay, so now what we are trying to do is to create group hierarchy. So in this use case, we need to create this link, read-only admin to this admin group. So the parent would be this read-only admin. Okay, so let's go here and create the define the method, and then create the group mapping. Okay, so it is creating this group admin to parent group. And okay, so now these links are created. So next we need to define this write and read permissions. In order to define this write and read permissions, I will use the sharing management client create permission type API. So for that, you need to pass the tokens and relevant metadata. So these are the metadata that you need to pass for that API. So first I will define it in the runtime, and then I will run these permissions. Okay. Okay, if I go back to this permission types, you can see that read and write permissions are listed here as the permission types. Okay, so now we have done, but okay, so now as the next step, we need to create entity types, project and experiment. So these are the entity types that we generally use in our gateway scenario. So this use case is from the gateway context. That's why I am using this project and experiment entity type. So still this entity type is not registered with this tenant. So I'm trying to register this and register these entity types. Okay. So these entity types are now registered. If you refresh this page in the portal, we would be able to, yes, we can see that the experiment and project entity types are created. And then what we are trying to do is, okay, so now, so far we have configured our tenant. We did it previously through the Custos portal. Now we did it through the Python Sdk. And then we are moving to the registering entity. So this registering entity can happen more frequently in any application and in the runtime. So now what we are trying to do is we are registering this experiment as an entity. So if we go back to our gateway, we cannot see that there are any entities generated yet. This one is generated from the previous session. And now I am trying to generate register this entity. Okay, so it is registered, I guess. So let's refresh this. Okay, so now you can see that this experiment is entity is created. So now what we need to do is to create some sharings. Okay, so if we go back to this entity and if we select this sharing, you can see it is only shared with the owner. It is still not shared with any group or any user specifically. So what I'm trying to do is I will use the sharing management client and share entity with groups API to share this entity. For that, I register this method and then I will go this sharings and then share the entity. So if we go back here and if we check sharings, we can see now it is shared with the read-only admin group under read permissions. Okay. And then I'm trying to share this with a specific user. For that, I'm using the same client but different API, share entity with users. And then I define that and I will share it. Okay. Okay. So now if I go here and again, if we check this permissions, we can see it is shared with this Abigail, use Abigail and under read permission. So now we can see that there are only two direct sharings, the group with the read-only admin group and this user, but we have set of users in this read-only admin group and its child group, admin group. Okay, so all these users should have access to this entity. So in order to evaluate that, we will check the permissions for each user, whether that user has access to this given entity. For that, we are using this sharing management client and has access API. And if we define this, and then we will check whether users have permissions. So now you can see that all the users that belongs to read-only admin group and admin group has access, but the gateway users group user that don't have the access for that. Okay, so that is, so now you can see that how we can use this Custos services to come up with this kind of hierarchical group-based authorization. And then I will introduce another use case, basically a secret management. So there are a lot of APIs in the Custos service, but I'm trying to show you how we can create a SSH key using this Custos resource secret management service, and how you can fetch that SSH key using the token provided by this API. So when you create generating SSH credential, it will give you some access point. For that credential, you need to share that. You need to save that in your environment and then use it later to fetch these secrets. Okay, so if I go again back to this and go to the tenant and go to the entities, there are no any secrets created yet, but I can define this method and fetch SSH key method, and then I will run this method. So it will generate SSH key and fetch the SSH key and print it. Okay, so now it is running, and now you can see that the public key and private key is shown here, and then if I refresh the tenant, we can see that the secret SSH key is created. And then I click on that, we can see that the public key, private keys are generated. Okay, so yeah, you can, yeah, this is the brief introduction to the Custos Python SDK. So you can try out your own using different APIs, and you can try to come up with different use cases, and you can try to implement the Custos services, your use cases through Custos services. I think that is the end of the hands-on portion. So I would like to hand over the presentation to Roma for the gateways section. Thank you for listening.
Thanks, Isuru. Let me try and share my screen. Can everybody hear me, and can you see my screen?
Yep, we do.
Okay, thanks. So we listened to Isuru, and also the Galaxy team also spoke about how they use Custos services as well. So let me introduce myself. My name is Iroma, and I'm part of the cyber infrastructure CERT team at IU, Indiana University. And what we have is I'm also managing the operations of a gateway platform called CyGap. So this platform, what it does is it provides services of to scientific research groups and labs services, which enables them several things, but a few of the main ones would be for them to integrate with high performance computing for their computations, and also be able to manage the data that's get generated and share them and such features. So the CyGap platform, so it's a hosted service. So anybody who needs a gateway can come and request one from there, and we'll be hosting the gateway for that particular group, lab, or the institute. And what it has is the Apache Era with the middleware service is the underlying service of it. And as of now, we've got like 40 plus gateways supported through this single platform. It's a multi-tenanted platform, and we are counting, and which is around the country and which caters for local users and also some other users from different regions as well. And so what I wanted to just share is that as operations manager, how some of the Custos services are being really helpful, and we don't need to reinvent the wheel. We are just using those Custos services for some of the features that we provide to our users. So just to share what we do, I kind of selected 2 of the gateways that we're hosting, and I'm just going through their features that uses Custos. So Secret is a very popular, very mature gateway, and it has a lot of popular codes running there. And those are mostly community codes from chemistry to engineering, like that. And so one of the things is the gateway has the option of users to use the existing institutional login. They don't need to create local accounts and try to remember yet another password for a portal to log in, but they can simply use the institutional login through the CI logon, which is again a service that enables true Custos. And the other one is that one thing about Secret is Secret provides access to many licensed software. Gaussian 16 is one of them. And when it comes to licensed software, it's you as a gateway provider or as a gateway service provider need to manage the number of users who has access to it. So by creating user groups and having these particular applications enabled just for those groups, which provided as a service through Custos, the gateway was able to manage the right number of access to these particular license codes. And one other thing is Secret being a very mature gateway, and it helps users to get their computations done on remote resources. And it actually, Secret Gateway provides connectivity to many resources here in US. And Exceed is a particular resource community that which enables them to connect to different resources around the country. And Secret also connects to some cloud resources and commercial resources in terms of high performance computing. And in order to get connected to those, we need to make sure that we have a secure connectivity. And that is also another service that provides through Custos. And one other aspect is that when you think about computational resources, there are university resources as well. So when it comes to university resources, especially if I take Indiana University here at IU as an example, we have several of our resources, and they are mainly for Indiana University users and their collaborators. So when it comes to that, what we need to make sure is the right users would have access to the right resources. So those that is also another feature that we were able to enable through the group sharing and the capabilities of Custos. And the next is that when we get into our research and we do our computations and we generate these data, and the chances are there are several times that you would want to share this particular data or the generated output with other users that you are working on the research or in your lab or your collaborators. So when it comes to that, sharing your work is also important with the right individuals or the right user groups. And the Secret Gateway also provides this particular service, again, through Custos. And what it does is that it enables you to share your work with your lab and your choice of other users. So such services that is provided through Secret Gateway is actually enabled through Custos services. So next, let me try another gateway. So this is a little bit different to Secret. So what Simvascula is providing a specific research course generated at Stanford University labs, which is called Marston Labs. And what they do is that, so this particular gateway actually provides for both research and educational uses. So when it comes to both classroom and community, they wanted to make sure the gateway would be able to be used by different institutes or different universities and also different user groups. So what they did is they have a gateway and they've got access to several HPC clusters here at Exceed, but they wanted to make sure that different groups, if it's students or if it's research, should have access at different levels for these resources. And this is also controlled by user groups. And also when it comes to controlling access to a resource, the gateway actually provides controlling to the level of how many nodes or how long a particular group would be able to run a particular code or a computation. So, and also the sharing aspect is also used very much here, especially when the services are used with when the gateway services are used by classroom students. They need to make sure the work they do or the computations they've done is shared by the teachers, teaching assistants, so they could review the work. And so that is also provided through the Simvascula Gateway. So some of the, I've just put some names of the universities that uses this gateway. And this is yet another gateway that is being benefited through Custos Services. I think mine is a little bit of a quick one. Anyone has any questions? Okay, that's it. And if there's any questions, happy to take them.